in the application of using electric chain hoist overhead, a lot of the time you're going to have a secondary support member there. Now, in some regions that use the D8 Plus SQP2 standards, in those regions, if you have a D8 Plus hoist, you don't need to have secondary supports with it. Now, if you don't have a D8 Plus hoist, you're going to have a secondary backup. So we're going to use STAC chain to create that. Now, whatever the height is from the truss all the way up to the beam is irrelevant. We can fill that distance with, wire rope and other elements, but our STAC chain typically comes in 3 or 5 foot increments. We've even cut them even shorter when we need just a little bit. So in here we have a 3 foot STAC chain. So this is our height that we're working with, and however we access this area, whether it's from a lift or we're using some kind of work at height method like fall protection or maybe rope access, we're gonna have to tie off this load before it is safe for people to be underneath the load. So we're gonna rig up a second point close to the truss there, or close to the hoist, and then we're gonna get our STAC chain in there. Now, if we were to let the STAC chain take the weight and slack the motor off, that would basically be a dead hang. So the hang is on this, but we don't necessarily need to do that to fulfill the safety parameter of redundancy for this attachment point. What we want to do is eliminate or minimize the amount of drop down that this is going to experience should the motor fail or any of the rigging associated with the motor fail. So let's get our sling nice and tight there and see where we're at. So I'm going to go for that point right there. That looks like a nice spot that I can get my STAC chain into. So I'll raise up my links, my extra links, and I'll get my pin through there. All right, and then now we have our redundant point. So there we go, using STAC chain as a secondary or backup point. Now the dead end of the chain I've left on the bottom here, and that is a choice that has to be part of your general work plan and your risk assessment. So I want you to think for a moment, why would it be best to not have the dead end of the chain at the truss? So think about that for just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this and we'll talk about it. All right, so now that you've had a moment to think about it, you might have had some lights or other objects on here. They could be moving lights, they could be just conventionals, they could be speakers, they could be pyrotechnic effects, whatever it is. Having these bits of dead end chain right here just means I have one more thing in this area that could cause a hazard. So what's our best alternative? Well, I would have to say adjusting from the top, because remember, our STAC chain typically going to be 3 to 5 foot length. You only need that little bit of adjustability to figure out where your backup point's going to go. So instead, I am going to leave one link out. I like to always leave one link out just to give me something to work with should I need it. And by all means, if it just takes the full STAC chain to do the point, you use that, So we've got our second to last link on the bottom done. And now what we can do is actually just adjust it from here. So we'll pick up the STAC chain, find the point that we want to use, and then make our attachment up top.